there any truth in what Eckhart says that accepting your situations in life actually helps, as opposed to, quote, fighting life and viewing life as the enemy?
Well, there's a little bit of truth there, I guess. From a Christian perspective, I would say this, that in any situation you are in, to realize that you are the child of a sovereign God who, while the situation may be very non-ideal, may be in fact evil, is able to turn it to the good like he promises, and that he wins in the end, and so that you can have a peace that passes understanding in the midst of whatever situation that you're in. So there's some point where you just accept this is where it is. If you can't change it, and just say, well, God will use it, and you put your trust totally in God, and that can give a tremendous amount of peace. That is very, very different than what Eckhart Tolle says to do, however. His program, in fact, he quotes the Bible verse at one point. I don't think this is in A New Earth. I think it's in The Power of Now, where he quotes the Bible verse, "Be still and know that I am God." And he encourages people to apply that to themselves. Be still and say to yourself, and know that I am God. You are one with the source. The ocean, the wave may be disturbed and destroyed, but the ocean can never be disturbed and destroyed. He quotes Paul saying, talk about a peace that passes understanding. And that happens when we get out of our ego, when we are totally removed from our self-identification. Well, now you can have a peace that passes understanding, which of course is not what Paul meant by that verse. He's talking about a relationship with Christ that it has a peace that passes understanding. The thing about the kingdom is this. See, if Jesus is the model, Jesus had a peace that was centered on a relationship with the Father, and yet Jesus revolted against everything in life that was not consistent with the Father's will. He was a revolutionary. He didn't just acquiesce to whatever is. Whereas in this program, in the New Age program, and it comes right out of Hinduism, you don't revolt. The wave doesn't revolt against the ocean. You just accept. There's a sense of resignation. Whatever is. In fact, the true master, he says, only says, is that so? Is that so? At one point he says in the book, when whatever situation the master, which is the enlightened one, the Eckhart types, whatever they see, however right or wrong people label it, they don't label it right or wrong. Rather, they simply say, is that so? Because ultimately there is no right or wrong, there's just isness. And the universe is just trying to teach you something, even though it's impersonal, and I don't know how it quite teaches us anything, but you just say, is that so? And what's ironic is that Eckhart himself labels a lot of things right and wrong throughout his book, but that, I guess, is not his belief, that's just pure awareness. But anyways, so there's a world of difference between the kind of peace. The Christian can have a peace in the midst of everything without losing your individuality, because you're anchored in, you're related to the sovereign God. Whereas in the Eastern system, you have a peace that passes understanding because you disappear into God. You realize your awareness, that you are yourself the source.
I think a lot of the answers, I'm suspecting, to questions on the New Age thought here are going to be predicated on us getting just how fundamental is the difference between theistic worldview, where there's a personal God who's ultimate reality, and what we're calling this pantheism or monism. And it's really difficult to talk to, and I've studied this stuff, I've taught this stuff in World Religions at Bethel, and I still find myself thinking about this from a Western perspective that believes that you're really there and that I'm really up here. If anyone's interested, the best book I've ever seen in trying to help Westerners get a hold of this is called Zen Way, Jesus Way. It was written by a Christian missionary who was Callaway, I thought. Whoever, great book. Christian missionary who was a missionary to I think it was Japan. And in order to prepare himself for this, he actually entered into the study and practice of Zen Buddhism until he experienced Satori, or enlightenment. And then wrote about it back to us Westerners to explain it to us. His analogy was this. If you want to understand what people are saying in the monist or pantheist perspective, imagine that everything you're perceiving right now and every other time you perceive anything is roughly similar to you sitting in a movie theater and watching a film. What you're perceiving with all your five senses is like a film. Now, is the film true or not? Well, at one level, yeah, it's true, but another level, it's not, right? So on one level, you can sort of enter into the film if you're really watching a good movie, and you can cry with the film. But at the end of the film, you go, the lights come on, you go, oh, that wasn't real, right? He said that's the closest, or a helpful analogy. Now imagine that all of your life is really that. I'm not really here. In fact, you're not really here watching the film. None of us is here. It's just a film that the cosmic one is experiencing, whatever that one is. And it thinks, or it's watching, or it's experiencing us as part of that film. But see, if you know it's a film, just a movie, you don't really get sad when people die, or you don't get particularly happy when amazing things happen. You're just in the now experiencing this amazing film that's happening. And so you can sit back very detached. You don't really love anything because you know there's nothing there to love. It's just a movie, including yourself. And once you can enter into that, you can see how Tolle can say things like, stay in the now, watch the movie now, because there's nothing really happening there anyway. It's just like a dream. And you shouldn't get any more worked up about any good or evil things or bad things or good things than if you were having a dream. And that's, I think, a helpful analogy.
The implications are astounding if you begin to think them through, and Tolle, to his credit, comes clean with a lot of these. For example, he says that in every event of suffering, don't fight it, resist nothing. That was the word he heard in his head, resist nothing, and so you just acquiesce to things. At one point, because where individuality is illusion, in his course, someone asked him about how do people take moral responsibility? Aren't they responsible for what they individually do? And Tolle's response, the transcripts are available. In fact, Abanus discusses this in the book. He responds by saying, how can a person, even a Hitler, be held morally responsible when he wasn't even conscious? See, to think that you're an individual means you are to that degree unconscious. You're living in Maya, illusion. And that by definition means that you're not fully responsible. And so ultimately there's no responsibility. Ultimately there's no evil. The only evil is you thinking that there's evil, that you are identifying with your ego instead of with the ocean.